CD-ROM game inside boxes of Czech cereals.
Doom it, we're sick of all these Doom bloody games with more Doom gunshots in 1 minute than we would otherwise hear.
So, have a nice vacation.
Shut up, number one. Captain, sensors clearly indicate the approach of a board. God, Jesus!
We are the Borg. Resistance is futile.
Our next actions will have serious repercussions.
Who wouldn't want to travel the stars? What's that?
You have been selected for the UAC space program.
What? And that's how I joined the UAC. Hello? Where'd everybody go? We all love our vanilla gameplay. Well, most of us anyway. But we all get bored sometimes, don't we? I'd be kidding myself if I didn't acknowledge this parasitic relationship I'm in, a megawatt here, a map set there, it's never ending. Well, in an attempt to escape this feeble addiction, I find myself falling into the warm hands of the total conversion. Now, if you don't know, a total conversion, simply put, is a specific subset of your typical mod, picking and discarding assets and mechanics as needed, replacing them with their own custom-made ones, forming an almost new and unrecognizable game in the process, or at least that's the intent. You've probably come across a few like The Adventures of Square, Wrecker, the Ashes series, or even Batman Doom, all fine examples of pushing and shaping the Doom engine into its own new creation. But what about mods that don't go that far? Well, then you have the partial conversion. At least I think. You know, the community doesn't seem to really have a clearly defined consensus on what makes a conversion one or the other. From what I can tell, the label seems to account for mods that still rely upon and incorporate recognizable and inseparable elements of the original game. Which brings us to today's offerings, Doomed in Space. Released in 2018, the 13-level map set was formed as a community project spearheaded by longtime member Doom Kid, also of Rowdy Rudy and Ray Mohawk fame, and also shaped by his distinct old-school pastiche, this time sporting more space-based weaponry and facing a new set of corrupt UAC foes. Now, normally I wouldn't focus on much narrative, but as you'll learn as we go, it'll be good to have a bit of context. You play as a classic unnamed grunt, genetically enhanced from childhood into a bounty hunter at the hands of the UAC, whose latest abhorrent interests see them attempting to further blur the lines of man and machine. Escaping the confines of a UAC cell and away into a shuttlecraft 18 years prior, your life of crime eventually catches back up and lands you in yet another UAC prison cell, where a quick snap of the armed medic's neck and snatching their gun lends to your new escape plan. Now, per the mod's own requirements, we'll be playing with Z-Doom, and yeah, I know it's not everyone's cup of tea with its questionable default setting. Jeez, what the hell was... Okay, looks like Graffy will be joining us today. I have to ask though, what the fuck? Where was I? We'll also be playing with all of Z-Doom's flashy features such as mouse look, true color rendering, and dynamic lighting. We'll also be playing with whatever Z-Doom's current default compatibility is, and since this is more of a story-based mod, we'll also be playing continuously on this WOD's ultra-violence equivalent, Expert. So without further ado, let's bust out of some Union Aerospace prison and get moving. Step over the poor medic, shoot the control panel out, and make for your great escape. Here, you'll get your first look at our enemy replacements with a simple lot of rifleman reskins to take care of. Now, on the subject of new guards, this level introduces a new shotgun sergeant and a plasma gunner as well. You won't really get a chance to acknowledge your new pistol reskin before picking up the mod's shotgun replacement, being the blaster. Quick, based on what you've seen so far, can you guess where this sprite work came from? I mean, I can see Dark Forces, Doom 64, Equinox, TNT, and that's just off the top of my head. Now, that's the sort of charm you'd expect to see in these early style partial conversions, mixing and matching existing resources to make something new. Call it lazy or inventive, well, it certainly fulfills that reputation that Doom Kid's projects have garnered over the years. If you continue through, you'll find the WAD's first room over room action.
Wowee! This is a real
Bridge.
Cross and pass through to... Huh? Oh, you poor cacodemon. What did they do to you? Ignoring that monstrosity, climb your way up and eventually fight the mod's new beefy imps. You can catch a secret railgun which oddly enough replaces the chainsaw, which you can test out on this lone guard and continue on to map 2. Now hold up, don't go zooming off just yet, because in between each level we now have a wall of text to help link each map to the other. For the sake of brevity, I won't read out each one, but I'll give you this first one at least.
I've done it. I've escaped. I can't believe I let those bastards imprison me. I'll have to move fast if I want to avoid being used as a test subject once more for their gruesome experiments. I wonder how many of these assholes I can gun down on my way out. There's bound to be some good loot around here, too. Ammo, supplies, hell, with a little luck, maybe I can jack a ride. Every bounty hunter needs transportation.
Alright, immediately prepare to get roasted by this trigger-happy flamethrower marine as you stumble into shuttle maintenance. And get used to these guys too, we'll be seeing more of them later. Venture forth and take out the Strife guys to grab yourself a Stormtrooper rifle. Sorry, I mean the machine gun. Look, it's only map 2 and I'm already confusing myself between all these faceless marines. I mean, for example, there's both a yellow plasma and a purple plasma gunner. I couldn't tell the difference between them. I mean, functionally all these UAC grunts serve the same purpose, more or less as light fodder to take care of quickly, but since it can be hard to remember what exactly each one does, you're best off just shooting first and asking questions later. Speaking of trigger fingers, I feel somewhat guilty about shooting this imp and new alien gunner while they're trapped in their cells. Am I actually the bad guy? Well, I can't see any release mechanism, so let's just conclude that I'm just putting them out of their misery. Squeeze through these tight corridors to find the next arena with a railgun waiting for you if you missed it. Using 10 cells per shot, it's not overly powerful or efficient, but if you've got enough prior experience, you should have no trouble lining up some combos. When you cross this door, prepare for a backstabbing ambush of teleporting flanks from the room over, which can just easily throw you off if you're not expecting it. Amongst the chaos, you'll find the new Lost Souls using their original beta graphics and spouting projectiles instead of charging, and hit-scanning Arachnotrons using their N64 sprites, though to my eye, they look comically large compared to everything else. This is Doom Kid's first output of the map set, and I definitely get the feeling he wanted to show off as much new content as early as he could, and while it definitely comes across as a little busy, I still respect the flavour as you steal a shuttle and make for an off-world retreat. To no one's surprise, our shuttle didn't get very far. Now, being our first off-world pit stop, it's only fair to soak in the atmosphere because, well, just look at this magnificent sky. Well, after a few hours, make your way down through the canyon and entrance to the toxic plant. It's here where you'll really get a chance to hone in your railgun skills. Down the hallway and behind this tower of crates, you can sneak off with a double blaster, modelled after Duke Nukem's machine gun. Side note, I'm certainly not the first one to point this out, but if there's one thing a super shoddy replacement needs, it's an equally beefy sound. And after hearing this one, I'm afraid, Chief, this ain't it. Moving on, this generator sludge room kind of accentuates the level of garishness that this WAD can succumb to at times, whether intentionally or not. At least you'll come across these surprisingly tanky green gunner guys again, spouting their energy stuff, who I can only assume are pissed at you for offing their prison power last map. The final of the map's new villainry is what I dubbed the Space Mancubus, and it seems that this variant is way more hostile and trigger happy, but hey, maybe I'm just distracted by pretty new particles. This map is as linear as they come, so climb up this final set piece and nab an easily missable plasma rifle before teleporting back to your teeny shuttle to ship on out to map 4. Geez, you'd think to have packed a light before arriving at night, cause I can't see a damn thing. All I found back in the shuttle was this passport. .mid. Regardless of what you might think, I'm going to gather that Mosshopper was really going all in with you finding these light amp goggles despite hiding them away in a secret, just taunting you while you endlessly press U's on every wall in this map, despite the measly 2 minutes of light it gives you. Well, it's either that or it was designed with the older GZ Doom lighting standard in mind, which is annoying seeing as you can't easily access it on modern builds these days. I'll admit, I was stubborn enough to figure out how to get to these goggles even after they were more than useless considering I'd practically beaten the map, but I figured at least I could appreciate the level's finer details, but nope. To my dismay is GZ Doom's enhanced night vision, and I thought the regular Albright goggles were bad enough. I mean, where would we be without the astounding work that went into GZ Doom's vastly improved depiction of light amplification? Who would have thought smearing a visual aid in green and inverting the color of already hard to distinguish enemies would be so neat? Yeah, alright. Tangent aside, you'll find the first appearance of the rocket launcher early on, which is functionally the same as you'd expect, barring cosmetic differences, and apparently it takes nuclear warheads for ammo. Something you'll notice if you try to make use of it early on is just how claustrophobic this level feels, despite also having an open environment to roam. Being consumed by the void of dark fog just leaves me constantly apprehensive, and not in a good way. Nothing made that feeling stronger than when I was jump scared by this space mancubus more times than I'd like to admit, and it's because of that factoid I now know it's called a hectobus. Geez, yeah, way to rub it in, Death's text. Look, the less time you spend here the better, so storm the UAC bunkers and pave the way for the teleporter out of here in this WOD's first real dud. Oh great, just what we needed, more darkness? Well, skip over the nukage floor and tread through these tiny hallways if you actually intend on getting anywhere. Because I'm nice, I'm gonna save you the headache and boost the brightness in post. Whoa, turn it back down, turn it back down! After that close encounter, you'll notice that this map is surprisingly detailed. From a locker room filled with radiation suits and carpet-laden hallways leading to dining rooms with a nice view to boot. This is meant to be a space station after all. This spot here somehow seems to capture a middle ground between the ambitious but undetailed maps of early WODs, but also the modern eye for Doom cute detailing. I probably would have loved the whole map exploring this space station alone, but it's unfortunately cut short once stepping onto the teleporter, taking you to a warehouse, a location that everyone is always clamoring for. Still, it's not without its detail, with a crashed shuttle out of reach, these cozy little boats, and a simple fenced off power box that really adds to the urban landscape that Ubergeway was going for. Once doubling back through the canals with the red key, you'll find the WOD's first cyber demon guarding the exit, who's also been converted into this dull shade of grey, making it hard to distinguish them from the brick wall they're in front of. Now that I think about it, whether it be the weapons or fresh paint on the demons, everything here just seems to be grey, and it's all just a little bland for my tastes. Getting back on track though, dodge the Cyber's less than effective warheads and pepper them with plasma until you can ride the lift out of here. If it wasn't for the fun little detailing, this map is pretty forgettable, but in hindsight, while it's short and linear, its ease and swiftness means it at least doesn't overstay its welcome. Okay, when I said I'd love a whole map set within a space station, this is not what I meant. You see this first corridor? Well, get used to it, because it's pretty much all you'll be getting. This map really doesn't have a whole lot going for it, just march around in a loop, grabbing each key and killing every enemy that feels haphazardly placed with no real cohesion. Being overly negative is not really my shtick, but this map is nothing more than just a glorified ammo box. I mean, I should have expected this when the story text outright indicated it to be as such. Now once you've grabbed everything, you can rush to the center where you will come across a new tanky green cyborg, as well as a red variant of the green alien, but they feel so identical that I'm not even sure if I've already encountered them or not. More importantly though, once unlocking the central unit, you'll find one of the only unchanged demons in this set, the Archvile. Because you can't change perfection, right? After dealing with that mess, you can spacewalk out to a supercharge, but honestly, with this level you probably have just as much fun cheating in full health and ammo and skipping straight to the next one. Terra 6 Planetary Base. There's no way I can hate a map that spells itself out on the carpet. First off, we can go exploring the mines to grab the red key, then right up through this foyer till we get to the main hub of the map. Prancing through the hallways, you get a sense that the map's trying to build a more lived-in experience, which, while limited, gets me to buy into the mod's narrative just a little bit more. Here, you'll find more living quarters, some office terminals, even a recreational room with a primitive pool table to boot. Outside, you can find a glimpse of distant satellites, and I thought the last space sky was good, but it's beautiful. Of course, I can't exactly explain what purpose this blue room serves beyond housing the blue key, so this map is equally abstract. Speaking of the abstract, this is probably the most absurd connection I could make to a Doom ward, but something I noticed were that these door sounds eerily reminded me of a synth line from this Soccer Mummy song. Back on track, after collecting the blue key, you'll have access to the outside arena, but watch out, because the abundance of prop placements and GZ Doom's solid projectile physics means it's all too easy just to rocket yourself in the face. Yeah, okay, I get it. Where was I? Deal with the mod's cliche plasma firing squad, and take one more backtrack with the yellow key to open the bridge, which is nicely spelled out for you in this cute little diorama, which tells me that Fred 512 has been smitted one too many times by unmarked switches before. On the return trip, take out these archviles early to avoid wasting ammo. Actually, who am I kidding? This map is so full of ammo that was never going to be a problem. If you flip this hidden switch earlier, you'll have an unlocked secret passage to the WAD's BFG, a buffed sigil-powered behemoth which seems to output more damage, or at least far more consistently one-shots this randomly placed spider mastermind. While you're here, you'll have to forgive my ignorant lack of culture and let me know who Fred was hiding down here in this Easter egg. Finally, cross the bridge and practice two-shotting this final Cyber in this dense final fight. Brush yourself off and zoom off with a new red shuttle. Conceding that looks aren't everything, we just about avoid crashing our terrible new shuttle on yet another unfamiliar grey territory. If there's one thing I noticed with Deep Space installation, is that it's tightly wrapped, both to its benefit and detriment. Sure, this level is short, small and sweet, but also densely stuffed with tight pathways where enemies can unfairly snipe you before you even notice them. This is most egregious early on when you drop into this toxic waste by the start of the level. Now obviously you're meant to charge through this tiny door, but behind it are a multitude of projectile troopers elevated above and another pesky Hectobus to boot. Now this probably doesn't sound too bad, but you can't really rush in without having to get up close and personal with these shotgunners or alien gunners around the corner. Okay, well maybe just dodge? Well, that's also a problem considering there's not much room to work with either side of the door. And what's worse is you can't really back off either, else start burning in the sludge behind. Now sure, you could cheese it with some door spam, but what should be taken away here is that this just isn't fun. It's not really a combat challenge I have fun solving, and it's more so just a case of pushing through till you succeed. If you can stomach that setback however, there's still plenty to enjoy. Being one of Doomkid's own levels, he does make sure to avoid static backdrops and keep it visually interesting, as well as taking advantage of most of the new monster roster. I would have been out of the map sooner if I hadn't forgotten to save before this pitch dark corridor fight featuring an archvile, but despite the raging claustrophobia and chokeholds, this map is far from the worst this set has to offer. Naturally, with another Doomkid level comes some proper follow-up narrative after endlessly planet hopping. It's here we come to the genetics lab, where apparently you were experimented on when you were younger. With that comes the assumption that we might see some of the real atrocities that the UAC has been committing, maybe witnessing some inhumane environments or some true body horrors occurring in this deep hidden corner of space. And while of course that is a lot to ask for a mod that takes pages from the more abstract designs of yesterday, details such as these rows of pseudo-Bacta tanks storing poor individuals helps at least to somewhat sell the illusion that is otherwise left in the background. But why do I deviate to focus on such a topic? Well, I think it's because the honeymoon period of this WOD has finally elapsed for me, and embracing the new fun and gimmickry is over. I don't necessarily blame this map in particular for doing it, but the huge foyers of repeating textures really emphasize the consistently dull grey palette to a point where it started to infect everything else surrounding it. And while I touched on it before, having most things adhere to this look just seems to go against the colourful design philosophy of Doom that always made levels and enemies easy to read and react to. Setting aside my feelings on the whole experience up to this point though, I appreciate this level has some height and elevation to work with, and I can't complain about the generous berserk packs I found scattered throughout. I'm also afraid to admit it took me until this map to realise that these lifts seem to be using bowling pin sound effects.
Nice throw!
Well, setting that revelation aside, I just can't escape the feeling like I've already experienced the peak of this mod, and perhaps that's fine, but it resulted in me just rushing in haphazardly, perhaps in an attempt to speed this whole experience up. Wait a second, hold up. I thought, aren't those lights meant to... Oh crap, have I had dynamic lights turned off this whole time? Hey, look, it's not that bad. I can just go into settings and turn it back... What's going on? Well, I don't see any better options. You good now? Okay, I think we better head on to the next map. Okay, I just want to admit I'm not perfect, because I'm easily swayed when a good soundtrack elevates my fondness for a map. You know, I haven't actually spoken much about the WOD's music, and while it's meandering in the background, well actually it'd just be better if I just showcase them here and now. Now, if you've got a good ear for soundtracks, you'll know that this pack plucks from everywhere, from Plutonia's MIDI pack to Final Fantasy, and not to mention half of it being made up by midified renditions of Frank Zappa. And while I think this pack draws from some great sources, I'm also not going to argue that this makes it at all cohesive, but if anything, it highlights what the rest of this mod has been doing, pooling existing resources and Frankensteining something new in the process. In this instance though, the music at times definitely marks the experience as a little more lighthearted, which is jarring in contrast to the bloodthirsty body horror backstory that it undercuts. I fear I'm really taking this all too seriously though, so where was I? Oi, put Death Scythe back on. Okay, besides the blood pumping this Gundam Wing excerpt sets me up for, and again, I don't know if that's just the music conflating my perceptions, but this map feels concise and skips on all the filler for a tight, exuberant experience. I find myself racing through the station, ready to take out anything in my path. The detour through this outside deck shows off Novanda's nuance in regard to subtle but not overbearing detail, and the map takes this opportunity to signpost itself with unique set pieces. Well, as unique as you can get with a space base. And look, I'm not about to call it bribery, but an accessible computer area map goes a long way, so if you get lost, you've only got yourself to blame. In all this excitement, I almost forgot I had turned dynamic lighting back on, a feat made obvious to me by this shine through occurring. Is this why I turned it off in the first place? Well, if anyone knows if you can actually fix this through some obscure setting, I'm all ears, but until then, I'll take my free secrets while I still can. As for the rest of the map, well, you know the drill. Grab your 3 keys, hurry on out of here, and hope, just hope, the rest of the map soar as high as this one. Well, actually, don't mind me grabbing this megasphere first.
Holy shit, does this facility ever end?
Oh, just you wait, Space Guy. Just you wait. Ugh, I've been dreading this one. I wasn't a fan the first time I played through it, and I was rudely awakened when it reappeared on my second run. To put it plainly, I have one glaring problem with this map. It's just too damn big. Now, I don't mean to shit on big levels because even as someone who prefers a shorter experience, larger levels done well can be exhilarating, especially if there's some tangible progression or even a sense of accomplishment. But no, that's not what's going on here. Instead, this level just feels big for the sake of being big, all while feeling flat, repetitive, and not to mention empty. I can't shake the feeling that this map comes across as being enlarged to triple the area it should take up, and that leads to a case where you feel like you're just being unjustifiably sniped from an unreasonable distance. Again, if this space was filled with some larger scale battles with some higher caliber enemies, it'd be easier to justify, especially this late in the set, but it just feels like a wasteland. It doesn't help that this goofy MIDI rendition of Frank Zappa's Florentine Pogan seems to be laughing at me at every step of the way. This map is certainly competent, but maybe due to a lack of familiarity with the monster and weapon set, it simply misses the mark. And I'm gonna say it now, probably my least favourite map of the pack. Just hug the left wall all the way to the exit, and don't worry, it'll all be over soon. Okay, it's the penultimate map, Space Waste. Funny, considering I think the name would have been even more appropriate for the one that we were just in. Space Waste is anything but. Or at least that's what I think, but maybe I'm embellishing my feelings after map 11. Well, setting aside my dubious system of analysis, what you've got here is a well-needed palate cleanse. True to its word, you're tasked with progressing down a series of nuclear waste with a sense of dread to boot, thanks to the accompanying MIDI. This map challenges you with its cramped encounters, but thankfully rewards those who have decided to hoard enough BFG ammo for the occasion. I'd wager the biggest set piece people would remember from this map is the UAC teleporter room, leading to the only region of hell in the WAD, where you will face a family of archviles guarding the Voyager's treasure, a yellow key. Now what was it doing here? Don't ask me. Clearing up problems like those leaves you to admire the small details that can be found throughout the sewage crawl, which is probably most obvious if you manage to find this hidden switch revealing the one true messiah behind all of this. I'll leave it up to you whether I'm referring to Doomkid or Zappa. Rounding out the map, I know Crunchy Nut 44 has my best interests at heart when they place an invulnerability and a truckload of cells near the exit so I can turn my monkey brain off and just enjoy the rest of the ride. And honestly, that fairly accurately describes how I'm feeling about the map as a whole. After just about making it to the end of this experience, it feels good just to ride out the way by going postal on this stupid f***ing Hectibus. We're pretty close now, so let's take in Gustav Holst and see where this journey is about to end.
I can't believe it. I wasted every last one of those goons and still no ride. How cheap are these jerks? Wait a minute, this can't be. Forget these stupid shuttlecraft. This transporter is taking me aboard the Screed, one of the most advanced, powerful, and valuable ships in this quadrant, and here I am boarding it, armed to the teeth. I think it's time to steal it.
Well, if you didn't think Doomed in Space was holding out for its last hurrah, then, well, you're in for a shocker. I mean, what did you expect boarding a whole starship with, let's see, 670 enemies? Well, Don't say I didn't warn ya. If there's one thing I should make clear, I respect this map's visual ambition. Just taking a peek at the auto map, well, would you look at that, a starship shaped like an insect. Well, judging by the name, I wonder if it's got anything to do with those same bastards from Metroid. While I question Pinchy's motive as more of a how far can I push my brushwork in a Doom editor, either way, you can't help but admire the clean line def sculpting, even if at times it feels like the novelty comes at the cost of practical interior navigation. This visual theming extends to each quadrant of the map, from bunkers, a mess hall, hydroponic bays, and even what I can only interpret as an engineering section. But while carving tangible locations adds to the lived-in nature of the map, it reminds me more of something akin to the mid-90s a la Team TNT's Icarus, as opposed to something less abstract. Though at this point, it should be clear that's probably the point, not to mention personal preference. Setting aside, this final outing commits to a non-linear style of progression. That is, your goal is to get inside the ship's bridge, which is locked behind a 3-key door, all of which have been placed conveniently on each of the ship's 3 accessible levels. As such, as long as you're methodical, you can't really get lost. Unfortunately though, combing over everything this level has to offer exposes a lot of the same issues that had sprung up all across this playthrough, which I suppose is poetic. For one, it felt like I was tripping over a line def trap every few meters, causing swaths of randomly paired enemies to ambush you from every angle. Consequently, it made it hard to take advantage of the rockets I've been hoarding and lured in by this whole time. Now, forcing the player into specific styles of combat isn't necessarily a bad thing, but combined with the lack of space, the awkward geometry, well, it felt clunky, not to mention long. Did I forget to say this level took me 30 minutes to complete? Look, for what it's worth, this level still beats out most finishers, namely because it doesn't just give up and throw a random icon of sin at you. Instead, once unlocking the bridge, you're treated to an arena-style wave-based showdown with progressively tougher goons, and actually punishes you if you don't take monster prioritization and movement seriously. Top it all off with one final Cyber Demon duel, and this is hands down my favourite battle of the level, and dare I say, maybe the set entirely. If you're a little fast, you'll be left banging on the exit. But once you're in, humiliate the mastermind, take your captain's chair, and engage. Hold up, did you think we were done? You thought that was it? Yeah, well sure, there's a credit screen and all, but let this be a lesson. Always read the damn text file. Turns out we've got 2 secret levels to cover, only accessible via cheats, so let's quickly dive back in before we end things here. Look, pushing aside the clear improving I need to work on, this map is full of chokeholds and a flat boxy design, but considering it was hidden away, I'm not going to be any more harsh on it, so let's just move on and see what map 32 has for us. Joe's map, huh? Oh yeah, this looks like it could be promising. What have we got? Let's just have a look, shall we? Nope, I'm done. I'm not doing this.
Homer, I want you to look at this
map, Joe.
Dad.
Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, let's put
Joe's
beautiful
map
up on the fridge.
Homer, stop. Would you please look at the
map?
Oh, all right. What?
Let's forget this ever happened. So that's Doomed in Space, a quaint but passionate little space-themed partial conversion. I'll admit, my intentions coming into this WOD might not have been the most pure, looking for an overlooked Doom Kid gem hiding in the rough, and perhaps while it may not be as refined and renowned as later community projects like the Jamal Jones trilogy, it's still entirely serviceable and far from terrible. I mean, sure, I could talk at length about how the shiny new paint of weaponry and villainy doesn't quite do enough to uphold the at best inconsistent map quality, but I fear taking such a tunnel visioned approach detracts from the WOD's true value, its design ethos. This project is simply one of many that takes multiple different elements and ideas, sometimes directly ripped, and brings them all together to form one grand vision. I liken it to a kid combining all their toys together to create one unique world. Does it feel a little stitched together at times? Sure, one caveat of repurposing monsters and weapons from something as recognizable as Star Wars or disproportionate as Doom 64 can be at odds with one another, but their presentation and care of sprite editing is surprisingly consistent and tasteful, for the most part. So while it may be a little rough around the edges, it is that very same detraction that gives it character when combined as a whole. And it's hard to deny with character there's passion. The inclusion of a more detailed and interwoven narrative shows at least that there was a lot of thought and care involved, even if that narrative at times feels like it's only there to glue together all the map's wildly different set pieces. But without it, the WOD wouldn't really feel like the mostly complete package that it is, and lose that partial conversion shine. So with all these pieces together then, I can't deny that with a Doom Kid led project always comes vision. Doomed in Space really drills down the notion that if you have an idea, there are multiple ways of eclipsing that barrier of entry. You can in fact reuse existing assets to make something of your own because, let's face it, aren't most mods doing that already? If you have passion and drive, certain gaps and skills shouldn't stop anyone from giving it a shot. Just give credit where it's due, or use with permission. So if you can look past its old school amateur style presentation and you're after a Doom-like experience but in a new setting and with some new bells and whistles, then consider downloading a copy of Doomed in Space. And even if you don't, you should at least respect it, purely for what these collaborative and ambitious projects can accomplish. It might not be the greatest among the thousands of WODs available, but for the most part, I still found it pretty fun. So, thanks for watching this far in, and consider like... Yes, what is it now, Graphy? Oh, no. No!